Nav, Kaur and Gurpreet Singh join me on the Relationship Hub to tell their relationship story. In this interview, you'll hear how their Sikh faith has always been at the centre of their relationship and how integral it was in bringing them together in marriage. Now, on a cultural level though, Nav and Gurpreet explain that the path they were on at that time didn't lead to the traditional Sikh matchmaking approach, much to the surprise of their parents and even themselves. Now, although they have always felt that they were right for each other, their relationship has had its difficulties, and they explain how they work through the challenges of mental health and how this period of their lives almost cost them their marriage. Nav and Gurpreet have been married for nearly 14 years and they have 4 children. Now, following his own battle with mental health, Gurpreet works for Mind and Nav works for University College London in clinical trials. Now, alongside their day jobs and family life, the two are parent bloggers on social media, and they also run an online parenting membership called Sikh Parenting. Nav and Gurpreet, welcome to the Relationship Hub, and thank you so much for being willing to tell your story.
Thank you so much for having us.
Great to be here.
So I'd like to begin by setting the scene a little and asking you to explain the traditional Sikh way of a couple coming together in marriage. What normally happens?
Yeah, it's a really important question. Traditionally, it's known as an arranged marriage. A parent of a child who is of a marrying age will go out to the community and say, my child is ready for marriage. Do you know anyone who could be a potential match? These are the attributes that this person holds. And then that's what happens through word of mouth. The conversation happens. And then there's what we call introductions, where the families meet the families. And then once the families decide that they get along and they're happy, then the couples come together. Sometimes actually, like if I think about my parents, they didn't even meet each other until my mum arrived at like Terminal 2 Heathrow Airport.
Wow.
It was the first time she ever met the man that she was going to marry, and thank God has been with, ever since. But things have changed a lot now. So we still have that same concept, but it's actually where the two individuals will meet first and they will decide whether it's right for them. And then the parents will get involved afterwards. It's still not the same as kind of going out with your friends and then meeting someone, but it's what we call meeting in more of a safe environment, because the parents are involved at a certain level, because if there are any red flags, they are kind of picked up before somebody, heads, towards kind of that ceremony and that commitment.
Okay, no, that's really helpful, and we're going to keep that in mind as we go through some of your story. And so I guess the first question I'm going to ask then for you guys personally is, when you first met, were you thinking of marriage?
Not at all. No way. Yeah. How about you?
Well, I actually was looking, and I had been introduced to a few people and I had met a few people. I am a little bit older than him, 2 years.
2.5 years, yeah.
You always have to add the half, don't you? So I was a little bit older, and I think the girl usually traditionally in our kind of culture usually starts to look sooner than the male, just because of having children and things like that.
Yeah.
And would rather have a settling period before kind of having children. And so for me, it had been on my mind, but I had gone through a very spiritual experience and my life had completely changed. So at the point that I actually met Gurpreet, at that point, I wasn't thinking about that. That wasn't my focus. I was more thinking about my connection, building in a connection with God as opposed to connection with somebody else. So although I had been in that frame of mind around that time, at the moment I met him, that wasn't a part of, my plan.
So tell me a bit more about that first meeting and this whole kind of spiritual journey, I guess, would you describe it as, wouldn't you? Tell us about those early days of being together. What did that look like for both of you?
I had been to India, and I went there to do some filming for my dissertation, which was in film. And I wanted to make a film about Maharaja Dalip Singh, who was the last king of Punjab, and he actually ended up coming to the UK and spending a lot of his life, within kind of royalty of the time, so Queen Victoria. So I wanted to connect the two cultures and how that related to me as a Sikh. But what I didn't realize is when I got to India, I actually had quite a spiritual experience, and I realized God in that moment. So I went to India. A lot of people in my family said, you went to India one person and you came back someone else. In that I had no desire to go out to drink. I didn't even want to eat meat anymore. It didn't taste good to me. Like, it was my senses had completely changed. Everything that I desired before I went, when I came back, it just wasn't. All I wanted to do was, just sing the praises of God. I wanted to realize God. I wanted to, just spread compassion and grow it within myself. And that was like a quite life altering moment for me. And it was even harder because the people that I was living with, my mum and dad and my sister, they couldn't quite understand what was happening to me because it was all internal. So I started going to our local temple, and one day, a friend of mine, she phoned me and she said, oh, there's going to be a Nagar Kirtan, which is where we take our holy scriptures, Guru Granth Sahib Ji, through the town and allow people to kind of, connect. And so she said, oh, there's going to be happening one in our local town. Would you like to come with me? And I said, okay, let's go. So when we arrived, I saw a group of men kind of who were going to lead the procession come down the stairs. And one of the men who were there, I recognized him, but I didn't recognize this person in the form that I had seen them before. So it just happened to be Gurpreet. But the last time I had seen this person was in college, and he had a shaved head and he had patterns in the back of his head and he had a goatee beard and he was wearing all these trendy clothes. And actually I didn't really find him a very nice person then either. I thought he was quite moody, quite standoffish. But now this person was wearing a turban, had a long flowing beard, was wearing the traditional wear, had, when we were in college, I used to see him and he used to have quite a harshness in his face, in his eyes and in his facial expressions. But here there was just nothing but softness. And all of a sudden, all I thought to myself is, this person is the person who's going to be able to help me understand what I'm going through internally, because they must have gone through it too, because they've lived the life that I was living before, and now they are on the other side of where I want to be. So I waited until the end of the Nagar Kirtan, and I waited for him so I could have a chat with him, just to get some advice and some guidance, but I couldn't find him anywhere. So I said to my sister, can you come and pick me up? So I was waiting on the steps of the Gurdwara, which is the Sikh place of worship. And I was waiting on the steps, and all of a sudden I saw someone walk past me, and I just felt this energy that was so strong because I was looking downwards. But this person walked past me, so all I would have seen were their feet. And I actually just, for some reason, just looked up. And because it was so busy, there were people in and out, going past me. But when that person passed me, something made me look up. And when I looked up, it was him. And I grabbed his arm and I said, excuse me, you don't remember me, but I think we went to college together. And he was like, no, I don't remember you. And I said,
so that was a bit of a shock, Gurpreet. Some random person just grabs your arm. Did you think, hang on a second, what's going on here?
It was more of like a tug. Yeah. But it's amazing, like when you say all that, I had no idea, obviously, of any of this like going on like before. And I heard some new things there about walking past you and all that. I had no idea even like about that. But yeah, I see. For one thing, when we did get into the conversation, I was amazed that she recognized me, because even when like I started covering my head early on, and I had even a really short beard, people in my family didn't even recognize me. I could walk past people that I've known for years and they just didn't know who I was. So for somebody to recognize me from all those years back, looking totally different. Because when you see someone, you're always looking for them in how you saw them last, right? You're not expecting someone to have changed so much. So that was amazing in the first place. But when she started talking, I was trying to remember. But the main thing was, I could tell that she was in, some sort of deep reflection about what was going on with her. And it was really kind of just you were kind of, letting it all out there immediately.
Yeah, I was crying to a stranger.
Just letting it all out there kind of thing.
Because I remember saying to you, there's all these things happening to me, these thoughts and feelings that are coming into me, and I don't know how to cope with it. I don't know what to do with it. Is it normal? I remember saying that. And I remember saying these words, I have been where you have been, and now you seem to be where I want to be.
I can't even remember that.
And you can help me. That's what I said.
I don't even remember what I said.
It's so good you're doing this interview, Gurpreet, because suddenly there's so much that you didn't know that's coming out right here, right now.
Great. Yeah, it's great.
And like where you were just saying about, you didn't even know what was happening and the people passing, and that connection was our souls, and that's the power of that.
So you, after that, said that you wanted to stay in touch and some sort of connection. And I don't know, did you ask for my phone number? I can't remember. I said I'd not given you my phone number.
I said, can we exchange numbers or something where I can ask you? I've got a list of questions and I can ask you. And you were like, no.
And was that not the done thing as well? I mean, was that appropriate? Is that appropriate? I don't know, in your culture and in your faith?
And that's why, for me, I felt like, because I had some responsibility there immediately. And obviously, in terms of where conversations can lead and things like that, I wasn't immediately comfortable with that as well. And also we hadn't even established a friendship or anything. And it was at that point, but I felt like I needed to support her some way. Yeah. And because, back then, I'm talking about 2007, right? Email was one of the main communications, right? There was no WhatsApp then, there was nothing like that then, right? So okay. It was very much phone conversations or email, wasn't it? There was no other messaging formats, was there? So then I was like, we exchanged email addresses, and then she ended up giving me someone's email address who was from Norway. It wasn't even her. I was emailing this person and they were saying that they were from Norway.
Well, I was in a bit of a state when I was giving you the email, so I don't even know what I was saying at that point. But the funny thing is because a week went by before we saw each other again, and I wasn't expecting to see you again. But in that whole week, I was thinking, I've got this list of questions and this person hasn't even emailed me, and I need to get these answers. Yeah. And it took and you just did not answer, or did not send me that email. And I really felt quite disheartened by that, because I thought, okay, now I'm back to the drawing board. Like, who can I find that's going to help me, connect me with what I need to know? And then I just happened to find out that there was someone, quite special coming to our local Gurdwara the following weekend. And I said to my mum, I'm going to go. And at that point, my mum didn't like sending me by myself because, just because I was a young girl, and she didn't want anyone to take advantage of me and how I was going to get there and all this kind of stuff. So she said, I'll come with you. So she came with me. And at the end of, what would you say, the kind of,
the program
had finished, the event had finished. We were walking out, and then he tapped on my shoulder, and and no hello. Can I just say, he was so rude. He was so stand-up. He gave me the wrong email address. Literally, that's what he said to me. And I was like, did I? And he was like, yeah. And then he pulled it up on his phone, and I remember he had that brick, that kind of very cold phone. And then it literally was the wrong email address. And I said, oh, I'm so sorry, I've missed out a 3. There should have been a 3 in there. And that night when I got home, I got we had MSN then. Do you remember MSN? Messenger?
Yeah.
So he had added me onto that. And then from that day onwards, we spoke every day. And I was literally asking question after question. What does the scripture say about this? What does history say about this? And that's literally, how it began. And the interesting thing is as well, like at that point, even though I looked the part,
I was struggling a bit myself, to be honest, because I wasn't around the right people. I didn't really have that much support myself. And in answering her questions, it made me fix up a bit as well. And I realized what I needed to do for myself as well. And she was coming at me with all these, different questions and scenarios and all this learning, and putting this all in front of me and saying, well, what do you think about that? Or what's the right answer? And then I was having to go away and find this stuff, which was great for me, because I was, beginning to, move forward, and I was kind of feeding off her energy as well. And it was all like, brand new for her, exciting, and uncovering, all these news, uncovering these stones and everything. For me, that was uplifting me as well.
So interesting that you're essentially, as you describe, for both of you, your faith is growing because of that contact with one another. So during that time, did you ever think that this kind of spiritual friendship might become something more significant? Did it ever occur to you that this would become something else?
No, I mean, I was quite oblivious to kind of like what our guru says about lust and how dangerous lust can be. But he obviously, one of our what we call gurets, which is, so we have a code of conduct that Sikhs follow, and of that code of conduct, there are 3 things that will disconnect you, in which you have to go through initiation ceremony again. And one of those is if you have sexual intercourse or a relationship with someone outside of marriage or before marriage. And so because of this reason, he was quite conscious of this. He was always thinking to himself that I don't want to ever put myself in a position where I might feel this way, or people in the community may make an assumption of something that is not happening. So he was very conscious that when we had any kind of interaction, I would either be within the Sangat, which is the holy congregation, so everybody would be there, or it would happen over email. So it would never be a telephone call. It would never be, just on our own.
So basically limiting that emotional side of things, essentially, just to try and keep it very much about your faith and what you're experiencing through that, rather than anything else.
We never talked about anything personal, literally. And I have reams and reams of paper because I just can't let it go. I want to keep it for, I don't know why, but I want to keep it, of these conversations we've had on MSN, because you used to be able to save it, couldn't you? Where all of our conversation was just about God, literally how to connect with God. And that's what it was about for us.
Yeah. And interesting, because obviously that was the focus, but clearly there was another type of connection going on that neither of you were aware of. And well, if you like, let's bring it back to that initial point. Obviously, we've already talked and understood how Sikh couples come together through introductions and so on. But as you didn't meet through a parental introduction with an intention to marry one another, at what point did you realise that marriage was a possibility? And what did you do about it? Bearing in mind that it's all been about faith, you haven't had a parental introduction, you know each other. How on earth did it happen?
Good question. We'll fast forward a bit, because as we started to talk a lot, I was involved in a Sikh camp at the local Gurdwara for youngsters, so like a summer camp basically. So I was quite involved in that, and I was keen to get her involved with it as well, to say, well, look, this is part of the community, like the service that we do as well. So and I knew that she's from a media background and very creative already. I could tell that. So it was about getting her involved with that as well. So we designed the whole booklet for the camp as well and everything, and we had a lot of free reign about it. So we wanted to get the kids prizes and all this stuff as well. So we're spending time together now relating to all of that. And I think where it came to sort of a head was that where we went out together to buy the prizes for the children. We were at the
Gurdwara, and we had one of the elders was there, so we weren't on our own. And I remember we were sitting upstairs in the library, and we were talking about kind of the management of this camp, and this is going to happen and this is going to happen. And we were like, yeah. And I said, look, I really think it's a good idea for us to get prizes. This will really encourage the children. It will make them want to do more and things like that. And this kind of elder, he kind of turned around and went, you guys go and get the prizes then. And so we were like, okay. So then we kind of were put into a position where we were going to be alone. So I don't know if you want to continue, but
yeah, I don't even remember that bit, but you're right.
Men never remember the details, do they? Yeah. And so
sometimes that's a good thing, though.
Yeah, so
you're doing really well, Gurpreet. I'm loving the details you're bringing, so just keep on going.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you.
And so we ended up going to a local mall close to us, and we spent the whole day there. We bought all the prizes. We weren't there the whole day, actually, because we didn't eat or anything like that. We literally just went in, we chose the things, and we got into the car. And then, we went home. And the next day I had like a family.
The interesting thing is, just to interrupt that, because when I think I picked you up, I met your dad for the first time.
Oh, really?
In the front room. Yeah.
Oh, I don't remember that.
So that's a kind of memory, and I did feel a bit uncomfortable there, to be honest, because
and you're best friends now.
And I don't know, we just sat, because our father-in-law, he's a very friendly guy anyway, just talks to everybody and gets on with everybody, really. So I think we were just sitting there, and he was telling me about some music concert or something like that, and that was different. That was something changing, because I met somebody from your family.
Yeah. And that again brings more emotional connection, because then you get a bigger picture of what's going on. Yeah.
Absolutely. I love how we're unpicking this.
And also, just to, we haven't even mentioned this yet, that our dads worked together in the 80s.
Yeah.
So they knew each other.
14 years, so they worked together.
They worked together. So, that's, so for me to meet him, I know my dad, and he knew my dad, and my dad knew him. And
we actually later on found out that because in our culture, there are some people who really kind of see the male being born as, higher than a female being born. And my in-laws are very much thinking in that way. So my in-law had 2 daughters, and then, many years later, she had Gurpreet. So when he was born, my father-in-law, my dad told me this after, we got married, but when Gurpreet was born, my father-in-law kept him round to my mum and dad's house to give. So it's a tradition that when you receive something like the gift of a son or a child or whatever it may be, you go to the local, kind of community, and you give them something sweet. So he came to our house with Gurpreet as a like a newborn.
All those years ago. Wow.
Those years ago, and gave something sweet. And my dad said, when he was in, like, it sounds a bit weird now, but when he was in the baby's, you were kind of like waddling around. You were there as well. So the connection was there.
Yes.
But, kind of just going back to, so we went to do this prize shopping, and then I next day had a function to go to with my family. And that was a Sunday. And then I realised on the way there, when I went to put petrol in the car, that I didn't have my purse. I couldn't find my purse anywhere. And I was really panicking. And I said to my mum and dad, can you check if it's at home? Can you check in the car? Can you check? And I couldn't find it anywhere. And then I had to go to this function. So on the way there, then I thought, maybe it's dropped out in his car, or maybe something, or it's in one of the bags or something. So I sent him a message and I said, I think I've lost my purse. Have you seen it? It's got my bank cards in it and everything. And then a little while later, he sent me a message. He said, yeah, it's fallen into the boot of the car, or it's fallen into one of the bags. And I said, okay, can I come and collect it on my way back from this place that I'm going? And he said, yeah, that's fine. So I was in the car with my sister. I drove up his road. I parked outside, and then he happened to be just coming into the house with his mum. They were unloading shopping. And I walked over, and something was really different. The energy between us was really different. I felt,
sounds like a soap opera.
It does. I really felt like I felt very shy in front of him all of a sudden. I felt very vulnerable. I couldn't quite explain it, and so I was just like, oh. And then he gave me, and literally it must have been about like maybe 30 seconds.
Yeah, less than a minute.
And so I literally took the purse, and I got in the car, and I drove down the end of his road, and I was at the T junction, and my sister just turned to me and she said, you love each other.
dum, 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 dum.
What are you talking about? She goes, the way you both look at each other, I've never seen anything like it. And I was just like, you're ridiculous. I treat him like brother. He treats me like his sister. I don't even want to think along those lines. It's not right, blah, 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 blah. And that was the end of that. And then the next day I was at work, and then we had MSN on, and then he was messaging me and we were talking and everything. And then he just sent me this message and he said, I've never had a friendship like this before. And I said, neither have I. And he said, it's a strong friendship because it's based on one thing. The foundation is basically the love of God.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden I knew what he was about to say. So I just kind of was like, I have to go now. And I signed out. And I literally
that was when, like, it was things had changed definitely. But I know Michaela's asking the questions, but I'm sure everybody listening to this wants to know, did you plant the purse in the car?
Well, yes. I mean, that would be true soap opera style, wouldn't it, really? You know, planting it there, you know.
And God is my witness, I did not. Okay.
Yeah, I know, and you know, a few things have occurred as well afterwards now. So you probably didn't do that on purpose.
Yeah, you know, I just get everything everywhere.
But anyway, you rushed offline, and I'm like, what's going on? I couldn't work it out. Like, what's happening? Like, you know, you just like, you know, I think she was. I don't know, David, did I try to phone you or something?
You just kept on phoning me, and then I took my phone and I put it in the drawer and I shut the drawer.
Couldn't work out what was going on. Like, for me, it was just like, I just couldn't understand.
Because I knew that something was about to change. And I thought in that change, if it didn't go down a road that we wanted it to, that I would lose the only connection I have with kind of...
So there was fear over loss of what you did have. And I think actually it's an interesting point, because I think actually all sorts of people, all sorts of background, cultures and so on, often there's that fear that the friendship that you have or the connection you have that has been going on beautifully can suddenly be altered or has the potential to end because of a romantic kind of notion that comes into it. And I think lots of people would relate to that. And it reminds us as well that there is a sense of risk in committing to somebody and saying, okay, let's try this, let's do this. But the risk does often pay off, doesn't it? So tell us, you know, you did take the risk, didn't you? Tell us some more.
I mean, I've always had a really strong sense of intuition. It's only like kind of in my late 30s that I really learned to harness it and trust it. But it has always been a great help to me, because your intuition is God whispering in your ear, isn't it? So it was like I was walking up, and I was working in Soho then. So in for a film company, and I literally he kept on phoning my phone. So I put my phone in the drawer and I walked out, and I thought and I was walking up and down the roads of Soho, you know, and you know what Soho's like. It's like loads of very kind of flamboyant people. It's very buzzy. And I was just feeling like I wasn't getting the calmness and the peace that I needed. And I thought, I just have to face this. So after a couple of hours, I went back online, and he said, I think we should meet. And I said, I don't think that's a good idea. You know, we've avoided meeting all this time, and that, you know, kind of we've ended up meeting, and now something's changed. And he said, no, we need to meet today now. So we ended up meeting at Liverpool Street. And
that's where I used to work.
Right. Okay.
I was in the West End, and he was down in the city. So I went down to the city and I met him, and then we went to a Starbucks, which doesn't exist anymore. And we sat there, and he literally, what we do as Sikhs is, and it's something that's really, really very important part of our practice, is we take a hukamnama, which means a commandment. So we choose a random page or ang from Guru Granth Sahib Ji, which is our scriptures, and whatever hymn you get, whatever that is your message that God is speaking to you for that day. And he must have taken a hukamnama before coming to meet me.
I think I used the one for the day anyway. Can't remember. It was relevant. So I mean, for me, just to say how I felt, it was like we had to do something, or that was it. You know, it was kind of like that. We couldn't carry on. Like
a point of no return, as it were.
You could just feel that something had changed. Especially, I was feeding off what was happening with you, because I couldn't understand it really, to be honest. But I knew that, you know, how you, and then I also knew that, you know, from your side, that, like you said, you had been introduced to one or two people already, and I hadn't. So I knew that fact, that what you were looking for as well from that point of view, everything really changed at that point. But for me, it was taking that there and saying, well, and because I had the responsibility already, so I'd already been initiated into the Sikh faith already, a couple of years before. So there could not be anything else but that.
Otherwise you'll be breaking.
That was our, that was the responsibility from my side to say, look, this, and then that was it, using that as a centerpiece to say that, you can't be, if you have the trust of God and God is your foundation, then there's nothing stronger than that you can't be like misled almost. That's the kind of translation of that. So I felt that everything up until that point had been that foundation. So therefore, if we were to move forward with that, then we couldn't go wrong ultimately. That was my sort of romantic way of putting it, I guess.
Yeah, it wasn't romantic though. The way
it wasn't. No, it wasn't, because it was very like and process driven.
And I was like,
this is
logical.
Logical.
And he just said, something has changed between us, and
this is in Starbucks now. This is the conversation in Starbucks. Okay.
Something has changed between us. I've taken a hukamnama, so I've taken a command from Guruji, and this is what it is. And I was quite shocked, because I was like, oh my God, wow, this is like really, this is very relevant. This is very this is connecting everything together for us. And so he said, and the next words he says is, I think we should get married. Literally, that's what he said. And I was completely shocked. And I was just stunned. And he was like, and I think we should go home and tell our parents tonight. And
my goodness.
I thought, oh my God, I did not expect this to happen when waking up this morning. But again, my instincts were telling me this was the right thing. All I kept on thinking was, all I want is to love God and for God to love me, and for me to do selfless service and, build a positive, I want to be a positive part of humanity through that love. And this person wants the same thing. So what better life that could I have but then to be someone like that? So I just said, okay. And he said, let's go then.
And I think that the interesting thing, now we're talking about it, because many years on, I didn't actually feel like I was asking, someone to marry me almost to the point that you would say no. And there was no fear at all. When you're going to ask someone such a big thing, you're like, well, they're going to say yes or no. It wasn't even like that.
You said it like you were asking for a couple.
This is obviously what's going to happen next, by the way, kind of conversation. I mean, the other thing.
Sorry, because in my head it was like I was looking at my, where I stood in that situation, and it had to be that or nothing. Really. So that's why I was kind of leaning it that way to say, well, this is what's got to happen, right? You just got to go along with it.
I mean, the other thing I'm just thinking and reflecting on this, because, the Relationship Hub, all sorts of people will watch this and different backgrounds and so on. But what is interesting again about your story, which comes up again with other people's stories, is almost there's that shared, if you like, value and vision for the future together, what that looks like. I know you were a little shocked at that point, but actually it did make sense. And like you've said, you talked about intuition and that sense of, you were growing together as two people through your faith, but actually you were connecting, but you didn't articulate that because that wasn't your focus. But there's that shared vision, if you like, for the future, shared values. And so often people talk about, well, it's sort of opposites attract, or should it be, lots of things that you like doing the same. And I think fundamentally what you're demonstrating is whatever people's interests are, whether they like, I don't know, exercise, or whether they like reading, or whatever it might be, the values that underpin that relationship are the thing that bring that relationship together and enable it to flourish. And I think that for me is part of what you're showing here, is there's that shared value, which is your faith, that drives you both, and therefore has enabled your relationship to become something, even though it's almost crept up on you without you realising it. So it's kind of, interesting, that similarity that you see in so many couples who talk about future together. So
that is so beautiful how you have just said that. I couldn't have described it better, but because we are night and day. We are night and day in every way. But it was the love of God and what we wanted for the future. I mean, we didn't even talk about if we wanted to have children. We didn't even talk about that. But it was just kind of something that we didn't even talk about it, like in the lead up to the wedding, nothing. Like we didn't talk about our careers. We didn't talk about anything worldly, should I say. Everything was about our spirituality, what we wanted. We wanted to have a good routine where we were, committing to one another, where we were committing to our community, where we were committing to the wider community. And literally those were our conversations. But we talked about nothing worldly, career, education, families, nothing.
Because we were working on our own routine together for our spirituality at the time. So that was our focus, because we had to remain committed to what that was. And there was no space for anything else in there, because we would get distracted then. And like, it had never been about anything else from the beginning. So we couldn't just, open up to that now, because we still had work to do, like, because we were still in that mode. We were still like, we need to get towards getting married, and you need to get towards being initiated. So that's the main thing.
So that's what I was gonna mention. So one of the things that he said was, we need to tell our parents tonight. But
that was the bit I was going to come back to, because I think listeners have been thinking, hang on a second, Starbucks, we're going to get married, we're telling our parents tonight. And you woke up that morning, Nav, having no idea whatsoever. So yeah, thank you. Let's come back to that point.
So I was going to say that, we had decided that this is what we were going to do. We had decided that we were going to tell our parents. But when we talked about kind of moving steps forward, like in some sort of engagement, or kind of like setting a date or anything like that, he was like, look, I know I haven't shared this with you, but, I really want to be reinitiated back, into the Sikh faith, because, I feel like I really need to do that, because, I haven't been as strong as I should have been since initially being initiated. Your focus obviously is need to be initiated first and foremost, and that marriage to God needs to come before any other kind of worldly marriage, and so that was our focus. And so we knew that even though we were going home, to tell our parents, we weren't telling them with the kind of, the conversation was not going to be, we're getting married, let's set a date, let's find a venue. It wasn't going to be like that. It was like, look, I've met someone, we're going to get married. We don't know when that's going to be, because our focus is this. And literally that's exactly what happened that night.
Yeah. So how did your parents respond to this? Because you've taken away their opportunity, Nav, for them to introduce you. You're doing the introductions, and obviously for your family, Gurpreet, as well, they would have had no idea, I assume. So were they in a lot of shock about this, and did they receive it well?
So my family actually received it quite well, and I think that me already looking, kind of, a year earlier or something like that, probably helped to soften that blow, because they knew I was kind of in that mindset. My mum and dad they're a lot more liberal, and they're a lot more kind of Western thinking. So they were not too, all they wanted to know is that this person can take care of me, as in like he's got a good job, comes from a nice family. So the family would be, good, and there's nothing kind of, criminal or anything like that. I think that because those boxes were checked, they were fine. And I think, it really does come down to your relationship with your parents as well. Because if you have a close relationship with your parents, that means that you know them and they know you. And so they really trusted my opinion, and they knew where I was going in my life. They knew I was changing. They knew this was going to be somewhat like meeting him and marrying him was complete opposite for the people that I was being introduced to earlier. Complete opposite. Yeah. So my dad was very much in happy that I was going to be marrying someone with a turban, someone who's following the faith, someone who has those virtues at the forefront of their life, because he knew that I would be taken care of. So that for them, they were happy.
Yeah, I think with me, I feel that my mum and dad we never really had many conversations about this kind of stuff, but it was kind of like, with them, it was when you feel that. So I was still 24, wasn't really looking, hadn't been a part of any process of anything so far. But it was kind of like I felt that, when you find the right person, you can come and talk to us and tell us, and then we can take it from there, kind of thing. So, but we're the two of us are looking at it like, we were all focused on, moving forward with our Sikhi and focusing on our spirituality. But obviously, people probably had been looking at from the outside, thinking they're going to probably get married, right? So it wasn't. I'm sure they'd already kind of
tweaked.
Exactly, yeah. So when I come to them and said, this is what's happened. Basically, we want to get married. It was kind of, I said the same thing to them as like you, but this is happening, right? Kind of thing. And to be honest, it was a little bit different, like the conversation, because supposedly, culturally we were a different caste. Yeah.
Okay.
And then this is where that comes in to, it's not a part of the faith at all. It's not a part of anything. Not part of the oneness that we put out there in the world. But unfortunately, this is what's come from the past. People were not educated. And the fact that what your profession was your status in terms of your caste. So this is what it looked like for us in the community, and that was a part of the conversation. I said that I didn't care for that, but there was obviously certain people in my family, elders, that were very much, because they'd grown up saying, well, this is who you are. Right. This is your religion. This is your everything. And they were not educated at all. So they'd grown up their whole lives thinking that this is our social status and everybody is lower than us, basically. So that was part of the conversation. But I remember my mum and dad saying that we know that you're not going to change your mind, and that, this is it. And you either get married here or you're not getting married anywhere. Like, they could feel that from me, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
And then,
well, like you said, you'd said it to them as not that, oh, this is what I'm thinking of doing. You're saying, you're letting them in on what's happening, essentially, aren't you? That way round. And
that's interesting, because we're talking about, how, people getting introduced and what the traditions are, but things have changed. And now we know that as well, that the children have the more power to say, well, this is what's going on now. It's flipped around.
Yeah. If I think about my mum, my auntie came, my dad's sister came to my mum and my grandma's house to see my aunt, meet my aunt for my dad. And my mum was very much like me, very bubbly, very kind of like, all out there and very extroverted. So mum, thinking that, oh, they're here to see my sister, she came in and she was like kind of jumping on the sofas and messing about and, kind of being like, well, and meeting everybody, how are you? Da, 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 da. And my aunt said to my granddad, to my dad's dad, we don't want her, we want her.
Really?
Yeah. And the next day, so my mum must have came out of the room, and then the conversation happened that we like this girl that we've come to see, but we actually like the younger one more, because she is more, she will be more connected with, we feel that there'll be more in common, there'll be more, and so that when they left, then literally they had done, in those days, they used to do like what we call suggan, so which is where you give something sweet in exchange, which is saying, we'll seal the deal now. And so they did that, and they left, they shut the doors, and then my mum was like, so what did they say? What did they say about like, sister getting married and going to England? Like, what did they say? And then literally my grandma said, she's not going, you're going. And my mum said, yeah, literally. And I said to my mum, as I've got older, I said, like, did you not, if you didn't want to go, she enjoyed her life, my mum. And so I said to her, did you ever have anything inside you to say, I don't want to go, if you knew that you didn't want to do that? And she said that was not an option for us to say no.
Wow.
And so
that's so interesting. It's like you said, Gurpreet, where the shift has changed. So the emphasis is on the children. But also the other thing that's interesting, you talked about, it's that the culture was about caste. So it's that culture versus faith. It's a very different thing. You're being driven by your faith and that sense of connection with Nav and what God is kind of directing you towards. But actually the family tradition, broadly speaking for different families as well, will partly be driven by the culture, which is a different thing, which again is almost a bit of a reminder to us all within the cultures that we're in, that can cause us to be biased or to be prejudiced even, or to have the wrong emphasis, and it's not about the values, is it? It's not about the values that people share. It's about, you know, say this sort of tradition, which is a good thing to challenge, I would say.
100%.
Yeah, I agree. And for me as well, separate to that, it was a bit of an awakening as well, because I was looking at people in my family and thinking that they were a certain way, but when it had been put to the test, yeah, then they chose the culture over what you said was in the faith.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah.
He was looking at people through, what do they say, like rose tinted glasses.
Yeah.
And it was that moment that he saw that wasn't the reality.
That was difficult for me, because that was, you know, I was supposedly the first person in my family, extended family, to marry out of caste. So it was a big thing.
Yeah.
And so I was just going to say, to just put a little bit of kind of context to this, a little bit more for those watching, is that it would be okay. It would be more okay for someone in my husband's side of the family to marry someone who was white or black, but not to marry someone of a different caste.
Is that right?
That's how embedded people are in the caste system.
It's like it's like marrying a different religion and something. It's really blown up massively. To a point, my grandmother said she wasn't going to come to the wedding. She said, I'm not going to come to the wedding. But she did, and she did end up coming to the wedding.
She wasn't happy the whole day, but she came. At
first, she was, you know, that's what she said, because, like I said, you know, it was a big thing for her. It's huge.
Yeah.
And it didn't work with me saying that, you know what, this is what our, you know, faith talks about, and this is what you meant to believe in. And for me, for her, it was like, well, you know, this is what I've been told by my parents. My grandson is now telling me that I've been wrong my whole life. No chance. This is who we are. This is what we believe in. You're going outside of this now. And, you know, and obviously my mum was worried about what her mum thought, which is, you know, my grandmother, and everything. But, you know, it was happening, and that was it.
It's fascinating, because I think that it's one of those things, isn't it, where almost as you're telling me this, and I'm thinking, you know, I'm a mum and I've got my kids, and actually how culture changes all the time. And it's almost a reminder to everybody listening, whatever your situation, however old you are, let's not allow those kind of traditions to hamper, you know, the good of our children and what's good and right for them, and not allow those kind of ideas to push through. And also that reminder to be willing to be challenged by new things. You know, we can get very set in our ways, and I think, you know, the older we are, you know, the more familiar things become, and the more we think that's how they should be done. And I think, you know, almost, this is an aside from a relationship hub stuff, but that, you know, let's not be so set in our ways that we miss what's good and right for people in how we approach things. So I mean, we could almost do another kind of interview on this, because it's fascinating. But I'm so glad she came to the day, though, because obviously it's that sort of thing afterwards. She perhaps would have regretted it, because you think actually it's such an important milestone when two people come together in marriage. And most people, when it's people you love and care for, you want to be part of that, don't you? And celebrating that. So yeah. But
as well, I think, because obviously there was other people in my family that were speaking to her about it, and they were saying things like, well, you know, in 1699, when our faith was basically blueprinted to the point that Guru Gobind Singh, our 10th Guru, he initiated the first 5 in the ceremony that were known as the 5 beloved ones. He picked five people, 5 Sikhs from so-called different statuses and different castes to abolish it. Yeah.
Right from the early days, right from the beginning.
So my uncle was saying to my grandma, well, this is what happened here. So the 5 that were initiated by Guruji, they were all of different castes. So therefore, it doesn't really matter. Obviously that meant that carried more weight than me saying something. But there were things going. I was listening to these whispers and things like that, you know. So that it was put in black and white for her. People as well. So there were people that believed this as well, which is positive. You know, these conversations never had happened before in my family.
Yes, yeah. Nav, you must have been thinking, you know, go Gurpreet's uncle. Yes, that I like that, because it just must have been hard for you because you're in the wrong caste, apparently. I mean, that whole feeling
it was actually hard for me to try and control my ego at this point, because all I was thinking is, my family don't care about caste, and they're just happy, and look what kind of a family he's got where all they care about is that. And so I was having to really kind of think to myself, no, you know, we've got our faults too. And I was trying to focus on that, but at the same time it did feel like a rejection, because I was thinking, I'm going to live with these people, you know, these people are going to become my family, they're going to be my children's family, and this is how they feel about me before we've even, you know, committed to anything. So it was really hard, and I think, if I'm honest, I probably still harbor a lot of that now. And there is, you know, grandma's not here anymore. She always made me feel that that's how she felt all the time that we were married and she was here with us. And there are still elders in the family who make me feel that way too, but my in-laws are not like that, you know.
Good.
And so things have changed, but I think, you know, that's because I've done a lot of work to, you know, make that change and build that relationship. But I mean, in terms of myself, I was really focused on, like, it was, although all this was going on, my focus was still that I want to go to an Amrit Sanjad, which is the initiation ceremony, and that's going to be my focus.
So, you know, you've talked about, the focus being the initiation before the wedding, almost that was the thing to come afterwards. But your mum, Nav, she was like, okay, like any good mother of the bride, right, boom, let's get this moving, we'll get the wedding going. I mean, you had to have a bit of a conversation about that with her, didn't you?
Yeah, I mean, like, I had to really explain to her that, you know, my desire is first and foremost to have the initiation ceremony and really kind of embed myself in the code of conduct and the reth, which is the kind of what we call like the daily practice of a Sikh, which is, you know, it's very hard to wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning and meditate for an hour or two and then do your prayers and start your day. That's very, very hard because we're trained to sleep until 7 o'clock, right?
Yeah, it sounds really hard. I completely agree. 3 o'clock in the morning, yeah.
So I had to really kind of speak to her and say, look, this is a routine that I really, really want to build, because I know that everything comes from that. Every positivity that I'm going to experience and every hardship that's going to come to my life will be protected by this routine. And I think she understood it because my grandma, who's back in India, she is a practicing Sikh, and she has this practice herself. So my mum was watching her every morning wake up at 3 o'clock, you know, and meditation, do her prayers and all that. So my mum knew that, but I think she couldn't quite understand why I needed that. And it was really, really hard for me to articulate what emotional, you know, what was happening to me internally, and the emotion behind it. But we, you know, my dad is a very level-headed person, and he had a lot of respect for me and the fact that I wanted to do this. And he, you know, I used to do drugs, drink, you know, my hair used to be up to here. I was like very, you know, I was working in the film industry. I don't even need to tell you what that must have been like. So I was exposed to lots of different things. I was going to premieres all the time and around that kind of lifestyle. So for my dad to see how much I loved that, and then all of a sudden just stop and go, this is not me anymore. He knew it must have been something real. He knew it was real. It was not a phase. Whereas my mum was still looking at it as a phase. Yeah. So she was like, you know, you need to plan this. You need to do this. You need to think about the wedding. You need to think about what you're going to wear. And for me, I was like, no, I need to get to the ceremony. I need to be accepted into the faith. And then at that point, God will take care of everything for me, and I don't need to worry. I mean, she got it in the end. And she had said to me, okay, I'm going to India in January. And this was around July time. So she said, I'm going to India in January to see grandma. Why don't you come with me and you can have the initiation ceremony there? So that was my plan. So so in her head, she was like, okay, we've got a plan. So that means that we can start planning from then onwards. We could do an engagement. So that was good because it gave her a little bit of structure.
Okay.
That didn't happen.
That didn't happen. So what did happen then? How did things change?
So for me, I think I remember we having that conversation. So I was trying to give a bit of my experience here as well, because when I'd been initiated a few years earlier, it had been in India as well, and at the exact place where the initiation took place in 1699. It was in the same place, Anandpur Sahib in Punjab. And, you know, there's no doubt about the feeling there on that ground on that part, all the soil there, and in the air, and everything you breathe is there, where that happened. There's no doubt about the history there, and everything. I could talk about that for so long, no doubting that at all. It's so special, and that was amazing. But the thing is, we don't live in India. So therefore, after that initiation ceremony there, it's all down to you. There's no support structure there, because you're going to get back on the plane, you're going to come back here, and all of a sudden you're on your own. That's what had happened to me. So it's very clear to say, look, I've been there. Therefore, that's a part of the reason why I was how I was. So therefore, it's about being initiated in this country. It's not as glamorous, Coventry, Birmingham, Bradford, as Anandpur Sahib in Punjab. It's not as glamorous. But I know, because I've been there, that this is why here we can have the support network and the structure and the sangha that we call it, the community that's going to drive us forward. So that's what I was saying. Look,
so he was saying to me, so he didn't tell me not to go to India, but he was kind of giving his point of view in that it's all on you after that. And the other thing was that I never used to cover my hair. So like I said, I used to always have the latest style. I had very curly hair, and I really had a desire to wear the turban, because our faith talks a lot about equality for man and woman, and there's so many things within our faith where this is practiced, and one of those is if the man wears a turban, the woman can wear a turban. And so I really felt that this was my true form, to wear a turban like my ancestors, and I really wanted that. And so he one day, just randomly over MSN, he sent me a poster for initiation ceremony that was going to be taking place in Bradford. Right. So exactly, not very glamorous. And I was, the first thing I thought was that where this initiation ceremony was going to be taking place, there was a bad reputation for the people holding the ceremony. And I was straight away, I was like, no, I don't. But then when I started, and he didn't say nothing back to me, nothing. He didn't reply as in, where did you hear that? Or where have you got this from? And I think that was really impactful. They say a silence is more powerful than a word. Yeah. So anyway, the next day I must have just been at work and something came into my head to just look up the initiation ceremony poster that he had sent me. And when I looked it up, the first thing it said on there was about the turban. Right. That all initiates are required to wear a turban, whether you are male or female. There's complete equality in this space. Whereas all the other ceremonies that were happening, the India ones as well, did not say that the woman has to wear the turban. The woman did not have to wear the turban there. And for me, I thought, this is who I am. Yeah. And this place is saying that this is the real form of, a Sikh. So whether they regardless of gender, it's genderless. And that was so powerful to me. And so the seed was sown, the mind started to change. And then I said to my mum, I can't wait to go to, I can't wait till January to go to India. There's one in December. And I said, I want to go to that one. And she was like, oh, okay. And there were lots of people that came back and said to my mum, oh, she's going to have to wear a turban. How are you going to be feeling about that? And my mum was not very happy. She was like, no one's going to marry you. No one's going to, no one's going to be interested in you. You're not going to be able to get a job in this country. You are putting so many blockages in your way. These are the kind of things that my mum was saying to me, but it didn't matter because I just knew that this was my true form. And so anyway, we ended up going to the Amrit Sanjad. My mum and dad came with me. His mum and dad came with him. We went in. An amazing experience. And so when you are new and you have never been to an initiation ceremony before, you go in one time in a group of people who haven't been before. You're asked a few questions. So they want to see that you are ready to commit to this. It's not like anybody come in. They ask you a few questions and then they say to you whether you can come back in for the ceremony or not. We were all accepted. We all came back out. Those people who have been before, they have to go in alone and they have to declare anything they want to declare. So if they've broken one of the code of conducts, or if they just have something on their mind, or if they just want to get some advice. So he was obviously going in and
that's exactly it. It's like you said, if you've gone there for the first time, you are, part of that, the audience there, and you asked a few questions, and that's it, you're done. Because I'd been initiated before, then I'm accountable from that period of time. Yeah. And I hadn't done anything that was, deemed like a few things you mentioned before as a disconnect. But in order to get reinitiated, but I needed an audience. Yeah. So therefore, I needed to talk about, why my spirituality, I'd struggled and stuff on my own, and other bits and pieces, and things that I was feeling, and the support. I didn't have any support. I had zero support until we had met, really. So I needed to get that stuff off my chest and speak about that and move forward from it. And then I also needed to mention that, I've met, we want to get married.
Yeah.
Was an important thing.
But you had a lot of guilt because you felt that, these feelings had changed, where you were trying to, you didn't realize where this had happened. So you had so much guilt. And so you said, look, I was helping somebody who was coming onto the path, and my feelings have changed. We haven't done anything. We've had no physical contact whatsoever. But this is what's happened. And they turned around and said, what you've done is bad. You should have controlled yourself, although but it didn't get to a point that's dangerous, like where you have allowed lust to control this situation. So, and we would advise, they didn't advise. They said we give hukam, which is a command that you must get married to her.
And the thing is as well, like I said, I tell you, I'd written a whole pages and pages of what I was going to say, like about everything. And God is all knowing. They were not interested in half of that stuff, because they knew that this was genuine, right? What we were, because otherwise we wouldn't be going there in the first place. We just make our own decision, right? Looking back at it, they knew what it meant to us to be there, and we kind of needed our sort of relationship and our marriage for the future to be approved by the 5 beloved ones. We needed that approval for us to move forward, and they knew that, and therefore, like they said, they looked at me and they said, literally, it was just like, is the person you marry here? That was literally, that was the question. I was like, yes. And and it was just like, well, and they knew, look, because I'd said, since July or whatever, we've been having this friendship, and it's all been related to Sikhi and everything. And they knew that obviously the longer, you can't have a 2-year engagement, can you, now, after all this? They knew it's got to be quick. You need to get married quickly. So
that was such a blessing.
And that's the thing, that literally it was just like, this is, you should get married. And it was the next point after that was, can you get married in 3 months? That was it.
And he said yes.
I mean, you said it was a blessing, obviously, Nav, but I mean, the 3 months must have been a little bit of like, whoa.
So the initiation ceremony went on for about 13 hours while everybody is initiated one by one, right? And everybody's seen and interviewed beforehand, just to make sure that they're ready for the commitment. So by the time we got home back from Bradford, it was like kind of lunchtime the next day.
I need to interject there quickly, because when we were being initiated, because I knew, but we weren't able to talk after that.
You wouldn't have talked to me anyway. You were just always never talking to me.
Right. Because I knew that they'd said you get married in 3 months, right? Then I was like, okay, we're getting married now. So I knew that. So I was, during the initiation ceremony, I was standing next to her, right? Because I was like, we're getting married now, so it's okay. But obviously I wasn't able to explain to her, hey, by the way, this is what's going on, because I knew that her head needs to be in the right place to be initiated, right? It's not about me saying, oh, we're getting married now and all this, stuff. She needs to focus on what she's there to focus, and so do I. So I kind of had to put that to the back of my mind and say, look, what we're taking in here, this mindset that we have now, we have to apply it to where we are now, and we deal with that afterwards, almost. But I knew, and it was like, because I was the only one at that point that knew that. My mum and dad didn't know it. Your mum and dad didn't know it. You didn't know it. I knew it. It was like holding on to that information.
But it did occur to me, it's weird, all these, it's nearly been just under a year, and you've not come anywhere close to me. And all of a sudden he was standing next to me, and I thought, this is really weird.
What's going on?
I thought she'd know about it, because she knew that I was going in there to, to say, look, we want to get married, and all of a sudden, like, we're standing next to each other. So I assumed that she probably would have.
I didn't know.
Got it.
But by the time we got home, I was so tired because we hadn't slept all night. My dad had been driving and I'd shared the driving with him, and I was laying down on the couch and the phone rang, and my dad picked it up and he had a conversation with someone. And then when he got off the phone, my mum came downstairs and she was like, who was on the phone? And dad said, oh, it was so-and-so, mentioning Gurpreet's dad's name. And mum was like, why are they phoning? And then basically my dad went, when Gurpreet went into the Amr Sanjar, he declared basically about him and Navroob, and they have given a hukam, commandment, that the both of them have to get married within 3 months. And my mum was like, oh my God, what am I going to do? She was like, how am I going to do this? I'm going to go tomorrow. I'm going to go to the Gurdwara. I'm going to see if I can get a booking, blah, 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 within 3 months. Yeah, so for my mum, because she was quite liberal and not a practicing Sikh herself, I don't think she quite understood like the concept of the Panj Pyare, and like when you get a hukam, so a commandment that you need to follow it. So she was like, oh, can it be like the 4th month? Can it be the 5th month? And I was kind of saying, no, then it won't be like blessed, because we've been told it has to be within 3 months. There's a reason why it has to be within that time. You may not understand it. So she was like, okay, I'm going to go to the Gurdwara and I'm going to try and get a booking. And so we and I was literally just sitting there on the couch, kind of trying to process this information, because I always imagined that when I got married, I would have this big, long lead up to it, and I would be able to, really connect with all the really important relationships around me and spend time with everybody. And the house that I was born and raised in, having that kind of processing time that I'm now leaving this house, I'm going to be somebody's wife, and all these kinds of, I couldn't even cook. I was just like, oh my God, my mum hadn't taught me how to cook or anything like that. And so I was just like, I don't even know, and I am the baby of the family. So I never really, done any cleaning or anything like that. I kind of got away with all of that. So I was like, how am I going to be able to do all of this? So I just like sat there and I cried. And my dad came and he gave me a hug, and he was like, why are you upset for? Don't you want to do this? And I said, no, I do want to marry him. I said, but I'm just a bit shocked because I'm going to leave you in 3 months. And I've really always been daddy's little girl. And, we just hugged so tight. But he said, the good thing is that you're not going too far away. You're just going to a couple of towns over. So I'm still going to see you all the time. And, it was a big shock. But
And so 3 months to organise a wedding, I mean, that sounds like a tall order. I mean, clearly you did manage to organise it, I'm assuming, and that happened. So was it just a question of like, quickly, let's just throw everything in place, let everybody know? I mean, how did that all come about in 3 months?
So the first thing was that I needed to go and get like an outfit, and I wanted to go to India. So because there I would be able to get exactly what I wanted, because here a lot of the Punjabi girls, they wear Hindu dress for their Punjabi wedding. And this is where the cultural side of it is quite skewed.
Okay.
So for me to just go to like an Indian shop and just say, oh, I need a wedding dress, they're going to show me Hindu dresses. Yeah. And I was like, I'm like initiated. I want to look like what I meant to look like. So I knew that I wouldn't be able to get it in this country. So I said to my mum, I need to go to India. My mum said, yeah, I think we should go. I think you should see your grandma before as well. So we literally booked her. So just tell everybody listening, the ceremony was on the 22nd of December.
The initiation ceremony, wasn't it? Yeah.
So we went to India in early January. So we were in India for early January. It's about 3 weeks we were there. We shopped every single day. We went to like one of the best places you can go to get the outfit made. I wanted it made exactly how I wanted it, from scratch. Even the beading, I had said how I wanted it to be done. They said they would get it done in time, and they didn't, which was quite stressful. So they said they would send it to us. So we came back home, and then my mum was desperately trying to find a gurdwara that we could book within 3 months, and there was nothing available in our local town. So we have 3 gurdwara in our local town. The one that I was born and raised in, that one didn't have anything available at all. The other one didn't have, and then the one that was close to where we lived, just happened to live now, that didn't have anywhere either. So my mum said, I think we need to look in East London. I think we need to go over to East London, and it's going to be a nightmare, but
to keep within the 3 months because of the 3-month thing. Yeah.
And she said, we can go. So there's one right by Green Street. So she said, we can go and ask there if they've got it. There's one here, we can go and ask. I said, okay. So the day that she had planned to go over to East London and go and see if those Gurdwara had any bookings available, she got a call from the local Gurdwara where we live down the road here in Erith, and they phoned and they said, we've just had a cancellation, and I think it's within the time frame that you need. And my mum was like, what's the date? And they said 22nd of March.
Oh wow. So 3 months to the date. Exactly. Incredible.
My mum was like, we'll take it, and we want the whole, because normally, so this is this is where there's a lot of confusion with our kind of like tradition and with our faith, is that what happens in a Sikh ceremony is that you have your ceremony in the morning, and then it's followed by singing praises of God, so just singing hymns, and then there's like a final kind of supplication, and then everybody eats, and then the girl and boy will probably go off to have some photos taken, and then they they go back to the boy's house, and then that's the end of it. Now what happens is everybody goes to the Gurdwara, they have the ceremony, they finish at 12, and then everybody rushes off to a party, and they go and have a big party. So the Gurdwara are used to finishing at around 12 o'clock. My mum said, I need the Gurdwara for the whole day, because my child is going, and they were like, we've never done anything like this before. And believe it or not, that our local town had never seen a wedding like that before, because they're so used to everyone finishing at 12 and then everybody going over to a reception. But this one was like, our reception is going to be being in the presence of God, being in the presence of the congregation, and just singing God's praises. And literally, it was one of the biggest weddings that's ever happened here. People we didn't even invite came because they wanted to see what it was like. Right. And it was an amazing day.
Wow, what a journey to that point as well. What a journey you've both been on, and that kind of sense of, those early moments of connection with one another, just pursuing your faith together, and actually lots of obstacles, lots of challenges, lots of moments of feeling potentially rejected for you, Nav, and for Gurpreet, for you to sort of say, no, this is how it is, this is what I'm doing. And to that day, it must have just felt like, wow, this is just quite something to have arrived here today, and all the dates falling into place. It sounds incredible.
It was, and the word is, it was divine, right? It was destined, because all of these things were falling into place because it was God's will. We didn't have control over that. And all these, and everything was just a message all the time. God reminding us we're doing the right thing. When we got the 22nd of March as the date, for me, I was like, this has got to be the right thing. And I realized afterwards that the reason why the 5 beloved ones, the Panj Pyare at the initiation ceremony had said to him, you have to be married within 3 months, is because if there was any time outside of that, it wouldn't have happened, because there was people with inside circles that were trying to cause so many problems between us and trying to break us away from one another. But we managed to get through it because it was a very short period of time. Even now, when I speak to young couples, I always say to them, I'm not in favour of a long engagement, especially if your families are heavily involved, because their differences actually can really filter into the relationship between the couples in our culture, which is why I say, if you're going to get married, just get married. Don't go for a 2-3 year. Don't wait until you've finished your degree to, kind of thing, which is what people were doing. And I do see it all the time. But I'm just thankful that we were able to do it in 3 months. It was hard. It was really hard. People had to, like our families, I had my family come over from New York, family come over from India. We had to apply for visas, Canada, all sorts of things. My sister-in-law was pregnant and she was in Canada. She couldn't even come to the ceremony. So it was, trying to make everybody feel a part of that the best way we could. And at the same time, he wouldn't speak to me throughout those 3 months properly again. And I was thinking things would change now because we're going to be getting married. But for him, he was really good because he knew in my household, being the girls' side of the family, that I'm going to be getting bogged down with a lot of wedding stuff. And that made me from keeping the routine. So he was always reminding me, well, are you doing this? Are you doing that? Are you staying strong? Are you don't let this get to you, don't let that get to you. So at the time it felt like, oh, he's a bit of a nag, oh, he's really disconnected, oh, he's not very caring and emotional. But I realized actually he was doing a massive service to me and to my spiritual self.
But also you didn't realize that, literally, every day I was coming home from work, I was getting, nagged about, not having any cultural stuff really in the wedding. And what's everybody going to say? And you're not having a party, you're not doing this, you're not doing that, you're not doing all, literally every day was
how can you not have alcohol at your party? How can you not have this?
You can't have a DJ.
Sounds really hard.
So obviously, I had to, and it was difficult. Now I look back, I didn't realize I was that strong then, but now when I look back, after you were quite strong and you were quite blessed at that time, because that was keeping me afloat, that routine, and that, discipline, let's say, a way of life, whatever you want to call it, that was keeping me strong. And I didn't feel that I was strong at that time because, again, I was the youngest as well. Everyone's telling you, what you should be doing and everything like that. And then
they're planning a wedding in his house, and he was literally every weekend just going off to this meditation place. And they're like, why is he not here picking his outfit out or helping us centerpieces and this and that? And,
I wasn't really, to be honest, I wasn't really bothered by kind of, I've got to be like this and this, that and the other, because again, it's just how we were all the way along. It's very hard to just turn it around. And I was focused on the 22nd of March now, as this is the day where we're going to be able to, start our life together and things like that. And, again, it was, like I said, keeping focused on it and not getting distracted and there was so much external stuff going on around us, and I think why we were strong still in our routine, and that's what helped us.
And can I just ask as well, obviously you've talked so much about your faith and that being so very central to your relationship, how you came together, just in that sort of slightly, okay, let's just talk about you as two people. Were you really excited about one another? And, because I think people listening will be absolutely inspired by your story, your steadfastness, your maturity, actually, like you said, Gurpreet, at the age of 24, to deal with kind of lots of, challenge at home and so on. Were you thinking, I cannot wait for us to become one together and to live together and to be with this amazing person who actually I love to bits? Did you have those kind of romantic notions, those feelings of, two people coming together as well?
Yeah, when you were saying about we hadn't had conversations about certain things, I knew from looking at you that you wanted to have children and have a family, because I could see how you were with your nieces and nephews. You were very attached to them, and I could see that. I always knew that was going to happen. Really. Yeah. And for us, like you said, a lot of conversations between us had been theoretical because we hadn't been together to be able to practice this. So we weren't able to practice our faith together. So that was the exciting part, that we're going to be able to go here and do this and
that's
do that.
That's all I was thinking.
Now. And, that's something we had never experienced before. And also, the exciting thing is, and we didn't really think about it at the time, but the exciting thing is we didn't really know each other. And we started from day one. That was uncovering everything. And that was part of the adventure and the journey to learn all that stuff. And that was exciting.
That was, for me, that's what I was looking forward to, because I felt like every day my mum and dad were holding me back from doing the things that I wanted to do, to places I wanted to go learn, go to different meditation camps and all this kind of stuff, because they were like, no, you can't go to these places alone, anything might happen to you and all these kinds of things. And for me, all I was thinking to myself is, when I'm married, then I can do these things with my partner and we can go together and we can have experiences together. So that was so exciting for me. And so that was the romance for me. It wasn't like we see on the movies where, we're going to kiss for the first time, or, the first touch, or it wasn't anything like that. It didn't even come into my head. I think the night before the wedding, I did sit down with my sister and I said, I'm wondering if I'm doing the right thing. And she said, what makes you think that? And I said, because he has shown me absolutely no affection whatsoever in any way. And so I'm wondering, am I going to be in a marriage with somebody who doesn't know how to be affectionate? Because I'm such a passionate person. I'm such an affectionate person. I'm just a very touchy-feely person. And I said, am I going to be married to someone who doesn't want to hold hands, or, you know, these kinds of things? And she said, maybe you will, but you trust this whole, how this has been mapped out for you, don't you? And I said, yeah, I do. She said 100%, and I said 100%, and she said, so you should not be feeling the way you're feeling, although what you're feeling is okay, but you should have trust in God that everything will be fine. And he turned out to be the most touchy-feely person. You know? He was,
and it was this sister, wasn't it, that had said, you two are so in love.
Yes.
So she sounds quite shrewd and quite wise to me, I would say.
She's a life coach, so she can see things we can't see. But she you know, her words were just very poignant and very true, and she really grounded me at that point. But the thing is after we got married, and I said to him, I said, you are not what I expected. And this is a conversation I had the night before the wedding. And he said to me, he said, I had to do that to protect us. Yeah. Because, and you know, I still don't think I understood what he was saying until, you know, I've, you know, kind of been supporting other couples and other people, and realizing that, you know, so many mistakes happen because people follow those lustful tendencies, and then things don't even go that far to, you know, an engagement or a wedding or anything, because the problems come straight away. I mean, I've seen it in my own family. People have, before they even get married, they've done everything already. They've traveled the world together. They've, you know, bought food together. They've done all these things. And that's okay too, if that's right for you. But what we've noticed is, in our family and some of the friends that we've known, they've done everything. And then when they get married, they kind of look at each other and going, what now? Okay, let's just have kids. And then when they've had kids, they're like, oh, we don't really know each other anymore. And there's all these kinds of things because they've not been able to build on anything. So that's why I was really excited, the fact that the day of our wedding was the first day of our life together in such a holistic way. We were going to get to know each other in a whole other way, how we live together, what this person's personality is like. It's going to be different from kind of the faith side of it. You know, where do we need, what areas of can I support this person that, you know, around where they need to work on, and same vice versa. So it was really quite powerful for us that we didn't know each other on that personal level.
Yeah. Okay. Nav and Gurpreet, it's been absolutely fascinating to hear your whole journey of coming together. There is a lot more of your story that we're going to delve into, but we're going to save that for a second episode or a second video. So we're going to leave this one here for now. Thank you so much for sharing with me, and we will revisit those other areas. And just to say thank you so much for watching the Relationship Hub. This is unusual for Relationship Hub. This is part 1 that you've just seen of Nav and Gurpreet's story, and we're going to be looking into more of how married life began for them and some of the challenges they faced later on in terms of mental health and how they fought for their marriage as a result. So thank you for watching the Relationship Hub today, and do look out for the next video and the continuing story. Please do like this video, please subscribe to the channel, and encourage and share with your friends and family and anybody else you know to get involved and start watching and being part of the Relationship Hub.